So first off, man, I have missed boxing. For the past couple weeks, I have been totally consumed with UFC because of the whole Diaz-McGregor fight. But after watching so much UFC, which I totally enjoyed, it became obvious to me how much more advanced of a sport boxing is, in my opinion anyway. I mean, UFC is very exciting, but although there are some very shitty judges in boxing, we all, for the most part, know how to score a fight, or at least who won the fight. Some fights are so close that it really is difficult to tell, but in boxing, you know exactly which tools can be used, and you know which areas the fighters are targeting. I mean, with this most current Diaz-McGregor fight, there was so much controversy on who actually won. I mean, I thought Diaz won, and I'm sure that's going to piss a lot of people off, but I also admit that I'm totally biased. But I have a ton of respect for McGregor. I mean, that was just a great fight, so like when they say the fans won, that truly is the case with this one. The fans did win, but that's not my point. The point to me is, how do you even judge a UFC fight? I mean, when you listen to these professional analysis, many give different and contradictory explanations as to why and how which fighter won. I mean, shit, the whole body is a target in the UFC, and no one knows if a takedown is worth more than a strike. Man, you can even stomp the toes, and in theory, that gives you some kind of points. And then I hear one analyst or coach say that the person who gave out or dished out the most damage won the fight, which is weird to me, just taking this last fight into consideration, the Diaz-McGregor fight. I mean, clearly McGregor won the first round, but if you say who incurred the most damage, it was clearly McGregor. I mean, I think he broke his foot when he kicked Nate and Nate checked it. So according to that, McGregor couldn't even leg kicks anymore because he broke his foot supposedly. So he got incurred the most damage, but he clearly won the round according to everyone else. I think McGregor kicked Diaz's leg like 20 times, but like I said, in one of those times he actually broke his foot or severely damaged it. And he may even be on medical suspension until 2017. So he clearly took the most damage. So although I really enjoy MMA, boxing to me is a much cleaner sport. But this brings me to what I actually wanted to talk about, which is how I think the PBC messed up. I mean, it's clear that the UFC is just a marketing machine, and they've convinced a lot of the world that this is a sport to watch, at least with combat sports. They're taking over. I mean, Al had the blueprint and the budget to just follow what the UFC was doing. I mean, all he had to do was follow the UFC strategy. With the UFC, you get completely entrapped in their marketing. They have everything from the embedded web series. They have the Fox Sports reality TV show. They're always doing press conferences, interviewing the fighters, keeping all the fans up to date on what's going on. Plus, I think the UFC has something like 500 fighters on their roster or under contract, but only a handful of them are true pay-per-view draws or, you know, superstars. And Al Haymon has or could have the same size stable and clearly has the same number of stars that he could turn into pay-per-view draws. Further, Al also has a budget. We all heard that he had $1 billion budget. He has the airtime, the connections. So he could have easily put on a reality TV show where the fighters fight for a contract to be in the PBC. I know there's been similar boxing shows in the past, but this would definitely help build the PBC brand. And then Al could have followed through with his initial plan of having a PBC championship belt in every division. I mean, yes, at first he would probably encounter a lot of criticism, but to me it would be better if there was just one belt and all the top fighters wanted to be in that league, whatever it is, a PBC league. But for now, I mean, it's just too easy for Al Haymon to find a way to put a goofy belt around someone like Adrian Broner. Not that I have anything against Adrian Broner, but I mean, Al Haymon has found a way to give a belt from 4 different divisions to Adrian Broner. And get real. In welterweight, there's probably at least 7 guys who could just murder Adrian Broner. But with this system Al Haymon uses, he has his 4-division champ with Adrian Broner. As we have all seen, when Adrian Broner is put in against someone who's even a little bit superior, he just gets destroyed. I mean, Adrian Broner is tough. He does come to fight. He will promote for you. He brings excitement. But there's no way he's at the top of the welterweight division. So anyway, to me, having 1 belt would make the world champion mean something, as it would force the best to fight the best. Further, with the UFC, once you become a champion, I believe as part of your contract, you start getting a percentage of the pay-per-view buys. Obviously, you get a pay raise. I think with the sponsorship deal, you get more money. So there's nothing but incentives to be the UFC champion. Now with the PBC, at least the way it's currently structured, it seems like you get paid a fortune just to fight bums. I mean, so there's no real incentive to fight for a championship belt. So in my opinion, the main reason as to why the PBC is failing or has failed. Now I will say that Spence supposedly did do well with 600,000 views, which was the highest number on PBC. But when you compare that to, I believe on the same exact night, the undercard on Fox, not just the main event, but the undercard, I think did something like 1.3 million viewers, just to put that in comparison. But nevertheless, I mean, 600,000 was a great record-breaking night for the PBC. But you can just imagine what would happen if the PBC did weekly or at least 3 times a month, put on shows, put on boxing shows to build their brand. I mean, the PBC seems to me that they're so caught up with the system and the strategy they used with Mayweather of selling the O, selling the undefeated. I mean, even before Mayweather, the O or undefeated was important. But the UFC has proven that, like in other sports, the fans want to be entertained. Other than the new guys who are just coming up in the UFC, almost all of them are not undefeated. I mean, once they start fighting and facing each other in the top 5, pretty much all of them take a loss. The one exception is John Jones, who technically is not undefeated, but he should be. He was, I believe he was disqualified for an illegal elbow strike, but he almost killed the guy, Matt Hamill, who he, I guess, lost to. But other than that, there truly are no undefeated guys who have tried to clean out the division or faced the top guys in the division. And the fans seem to be fine with that. I mean, look at the numbers continue to grow with the UFC. But the PBC is still fixated on selling the O. And the fans seem to be jumping ship because of it. I mean, like I said, sooner or later in the UFC, everyone takes a loss. And everyone has to face everyone. You really can't, if you duck, I mean, you can't duck for too long. I mean, no system is perfect, but as far as Fight League, it seems like the UFC is forcing the guys to fight, especially at the top. But Al still seems to be caught up on promoting paper champions and the whole concept of being undefeated. I mean, the fans have shown that they want to see good competitive fights. I mean, look at all the ridicule Danny Garcia has taken over the past couple of years. I mean, Danny was pretty much given a welterweight belt and for the most part has refused to defend it against anyone, let alone a top competitor. And the fans, in my opinion, are getting sick of it. So to me, if there was just one recognized belt and you had to fight the best to get it, I feel boxing would change for the better. Now, I'm not saying Al Haymon is the guy to lead that charge. It's just that it seems like he had the concept, the strategy, and most importantly, the budget. And of course, he had the roster. But he just seemed to mess it up. I mean, to me, I'm sick of the De La Hoyas, the Top Ranks, the PBCs, putting on these one-off shows and trying to promote them as the biggest and best fight. I mean, boxing to me could be something like UFC. Like I said, for the past 2 weeks, I was totally caught up in it. I mean, they have almost, I don't want to say perfect, but they have a phenomenal marketing system. And I mean, that was what we thought Al was trying to copy or replicate in boxing. But he's dead set on building paper champions and protecting the O. But I think that ship has sailed, man. I don't think people really care about the O. Mayweather's gone, hopefully, and the concept of undefeated should be gone. Fans have spoken. I think they want to see the best fight the best. So if there's a league that is recognized as a place where the best in the world strive to get into this league, it could only help boxing. But for now, I guess we're stuck with the PBC, where you almost never get the best fighting the best. I mean, in a strange way, it even seems like Al is reaching outside of the PBC now because he doesn't want two undefeated fighters under the PBC contract to fight each other. He wants to reach out to these other guys, so even if one of his guys takes a loss, it's only one. And if they win, all the better. He's just playing the odds. But anyway, let's be honest, man. Boxing is not going anywhere. It's always been around. But it could just be so much better. I mean, fighting is one of those sports where you always know what it is and you always know what's going on. When you see two people fighting, no matter where it is, what part of the country you're in, what part of the world you're in, you know they're fighting. I mean, with other sports, you might not be familiar with the rules. For example, when people from other countries move here or come here to the United States and they see American football, you know, it takes them a while to catch on to it, if they even like it, to learn the rules. But, I mean, for the most part, fighting is fighting. Since the beginning of time, people know what a fight is. So boxing's not going anywhere. I'm just saying that it could be so much better, and Al had a chance to really do something great. Now, when I say people know fighting is fighting, I mean the judges obviously is something different. We can never figure out what they're doing. But anyway, I was just thinking about that a lot when I was watching the so much UFC over the past couple weeks. How good their marketing is. How they just draw you in. I mean, they have all these shows where, like, they have the Fight Pass, which is pretty much just like an internet streaming where you put, you know, pretty much the farming system where they're building the fighters, and they have the Fox where you get some really good fights, and they have the pay-per-view shows, which obviously is the big draws, and they're just keeping the fans engaged nonstop. And I mean, Al had this. He had all the networks. He had the budget. He had the roster. But he just, in my opinion, he's set on trying to feed the BS that Undefeated. And it's proven, man, the fans don't care. They, like I said, look at the UFC records. Hardly any of them are undefeated. But that's just my take and why I think the PBC messed up. Like I said, they had the money, the networks, the fighters. But they're trying to trick the public by putting on gross mismatches. And nowadays, the fans, I think they're just too smart, and they can be too critical, and information spreads too fast. But anyways, when it's all said and done, man, I love boxing. I think it's such a more clean sport than MMA. Fighting and great marketing, but I mean, when you see two great boxers go at it, I mean, it's hard to beat that. Anyways, just my take. Looking forward to a great September. A lot of good fights coming up. Anyways, you guys take care. Have a good evening.